Well, good morning and welcome to this edition of You're Happy Now. I'm here with my good friend and kind of a relative by
Yes,
marriage,
yeah.
Denise Lampron. I'm so fortunate to have you in my life. Just as a way of a short introduction, Denise is a yoga instructor. She is a color consultant and one of the most mindful people before mindfulness became a thing. Denise was practicing it. I remember back when we first moved to California in '89, you're saying, talking about just the intentional nature of things or how you had to be. So welcome, Denise. And if you would just kind of give us a quick overview of who it is, what it is, and who you are.
Thank you, Arnette, for that wonderful introduction. I'm delighted to be here. And knowing you has been quite a journey too, because when you asked me to do this interview on happiness, I thought, my goodness, Arnette, of all the people I know, she's the one that seems to have this down. I have never seen you, not that your life doesn't have its ups and downs, that's
For
the way
sure.
of life. But you have this natural way of coming back to a place that sustains you. And I've always
Yeah.
noticed that. So I appreciate that about you. And that is a form of mindfulness. It's a form of practicing mindfulness. So I've really noticed that. And thank you again. And just to quickly introduce myself, I taught gentle yoga to mature people. And I chose that because all my life I've had a special place in my heart for aging people.
Yeah.
I don't know why. That's just
We're
how I
all
came
going
in.
there.
Yeah,
Maybe.
we're all headed in the same direction, you know? So
Exactly.
as a kid, I loved them. And maybe it was because they had stories to tell
Mm.
that were engaging. Maybe it was because they had time to love on kids, or maybe just because I enjoyed their energy. I don't know. And it really doesn't need a definition. It's just something that I felt.
Right.
So when I was around 50, I thought, the universe began to bring my calling front and center. This is something that you're really meant to work with. This is something you've been interested in all your life. So what are you going to do? How are you going to do it? Who are you going to reach out to? What's your platform? There was really nothing out there. This was 21 years ago.
Right.
Not a whole lot out there. So I had to kind of fashion it myself. How am I going to do this?
Right.
And I put a program together and I beta tested it with my friends. And everyone loved talking about aging and just being in that place, having that space to say, my God, what am I going to do? Where am I going to live? Who am I going to be with? Am I going to be in a relationship? How am I going to take care of my children? Or whatever the question was. So just that place of being able to sit and talk honestly from your heart, how you feel about aging as a woman. Am I still attractive? Am I desirable? What is my role? All of that. So that's what spawned it for me.
But that's interesting. You say that right around 50, because that's when I really began my journey of just really zeroing in on what my purpose in life was. And like you said, there's that ancient feeling in terms of yourself of always being attracted to older people or always being attracted to a particular thing. And that's so right, because that was exactly not the same thing, but my excuse me, my discovery was that it was something that had been in me since I was a child. That is now as a senior or becoming senior, it became front and center.
Yes.
That I figure out what it was. So that kind of answers actually my first question, which is how you conceived the art of mindful aging, which is the name of your program.
Yes.
Right.
Well, I wanted to go back
Yeah.
for a moment and say that we both hail from the southern part of the United States, that
Right.
area, and there's a tremendous respect for elders, just
Right.
even in our language. Yes, ma'am.
No,
No,
ma'am.
that kind of yes, yes, sir. No,
Yes,
yeah.
sir. Right.
And
Right.
that instills a sort of respect
Mhm.
And so fast forward, here we are in Southern California,
Right.
and everything goes, and it's all about beauty and young people, and we're not visible and we're not important anymore. And if
Mm,
you're retired, you're not even getting the camaraderie of your work, the people that you work with.
right,
So
right.
I founded the Art of Mindful Aging for the purpose of changing the paradigm on aging. Now, that's tricky because we can sit here and say, why are they treating us this way?
Yeah.
And in reality, it's up to us to hold ourselves out and to be and to show up and presence ourselves in a way that says, how can I leave that incredible person out of the conversation? What do you have
Mhm,
to say? I am
mm,
so attracted to your vitality. I'm
mhm,
so attracted to your wisdom. So it
mhm.
really is up to us to cultivate
Wow.
all of those qualities and understand our value and our self-worth so that people can't help but notice us.
That's beautiful because, so often I hear older people my age, younger, but let's say the over 60 crowd
Mhm.
says things like, well, I can do anything I want because I'm old. And, I had to check a lady once I didn't have to, but I did I think I was at Marshall's or TJ Maxx, who was being really rude to a store clerk. And
Mhm.
she basically told the clerk, well, I'm old. I can do anything I want to do. And I told her, being old does not give you the right to be rude. So what it buys right into what you just said with regard to owning
Mhm.
us, owning yourself, your brilliance, just your presence in a situation without letting someone pigeonhole you or without pigeonholing yourself in a negative way.
And it
Because
doesn't give us
you're
license to be nasty or to be
right.
rude, that
Exactly.
aging is a place of incredible grace, and
Yes.
we are going to be mentors. We have to be in the position of guiding the community, of being an example in the most
Right.
positive way. I mean,
Right.
if some young person had seen this behavior, they might have said, oh, that's what I get to do when I'm an older person.
Right.
I get to
Exactly.
be rude and nasty and say whatever I want. If she's angry, we all have a right to be angry. Okay, manage that. But it doesn't give us an excuse to be unkind.
That's well put, very well put. Thank you so much for that. So, what do you think? I mean, absent and, as we get older, a lot of times we do have health issues and
Mhm.
even declining mental awareness. What do you think is the main reason, or is there a main reason or reasons that some people have serious issues with aging? Is it societal primarily,
Well,
you think?
of course, I think that if we look out what we see around us, what we're surrounded with, it's not a welcoming committee. We're at the top of the hill, and as far as society is concerned, we are no
Wow.
longer valuable.
Right.
So who wants to step into that way of living? Who wants to face that? That's one of the reasons why
Mm,
we have to take stock of ourselves and understand
mm,
our value so that we can't let that happen to us. You
right.
know,
Yeah.
it's not an engaging place to be.
No.
Society is not saying we want you. And so women, again, that conversation of I'm no longer needed by my children, you know,
Mm,
I'm an empty nester. I
mhm.
haven't worked for a while, or I'm thinking about retiring. Who am I? I mean, that's a wonderful place to get curious, to be in conversation about who you really are and what you need to stay vital and vivacious.
Mhm.
Otherwise, we can fall into that trap of, I don't want to age. And these are external pieces like dyeing your hair or things.
Right.
That's part of it, but really it's an internal process, and
Mhm.
it's a wonderful process. So if you can get curious about it, you will want to have that journey of aging. I
That-
promise.
it's so stimulating because, when you think about it, because as you said, when you're no longer in the workforce, and make no mistake, being employed is such a defining thing in our lives. I mean, when you're young, it's what do you want to be when you grow up, right? You've
Yes.
always everything is directing us toward a job or a identity as a whatever type of professional that you eventually land on. And I know for myself, when I left the brokerage industry, I was really surprised at how much my identity was tied up in that. When I could no longer say, I'm a financial advisor, I'm a Series 7 licensed broker, financial professional. I do this. And it really caused me to stop and think, wait a minute, you are somebody, you got to be someone outside of that workplace. And who is that person? Who
Yes.
is that person? Yeah.
Yes. And as we get older, that feeling becomes more enhanced because society has given us this chart. You go to school, you go to college, you graduate, you get
Right.
married, you buy a house,
Mhm.
make lots of money if you're lucky,
Mhm.
you stay in your marriage if you're lucky, and we try to hit these benchmarks
Right.
unconsciously. We're driven by them.
It's so true.
And then when we've retired, it's where's the benchmark? There is no benchmark. You've been left behind. You're on your own now. You're left to your own devices.
That's a great way to put it. And it was certainly, it feeds into, or it's backed up, I should say, by the statistics, which are really very sad with regard to loneliness and aging. That connection is undeniable. I mean, there are so many people that once they leave the workforce, they feel that they have nothing and no one. Because as you said, family dynamics change and
People die and people
right.
there are so many things that happen. Yes, people can die all along your age line, but it happens more frequently and you can expect
Sure.
it as you get older. And Harvard just released an 85, Harvard University just released did you read that? Released
Familiar
that
with it, absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely.
And that it's all about relationship. It's
Social
all about
connection.
connection.
Yeah.
Yes. And think about it, as we get older, if our relationships move away, if they die, if we have ill health and we can't get around, what can we do to nourish our relationships? We have to get creative about that. Even our living spaces could have activities or just ways for people to get together because that is vital to our overall well-being.
Absolutely. Yes, I'm familiar with that. And they tied it also to happiness.
Yes, that was
Is
actually my point.
yeah.
Mhm.
When I started on my happy
Yeah,
journey,
yeah.
I was amazed at the fact that so many other people, I mean, if you look at the Google searches, how it comes up with a number of how many people have searched for that. I honestly have found nothing to match the number of searches for happiness. I mean, people want, that's an innate thing. I mean, it's in our preamble to the Declaration of Independence, right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so we're not the only ones. It's almost like it's in our human DNA to search for that.
Yes. We have a right to happiness.
Yeah, you do. And so knowing, because you are taking ownership, obviously, of yourself and your presence in this world, meaning the way you react to things that are inevitable. If you live long enough, you will age. That's just the way it is. How long ago, or has this always been in your knowledge, in your mind, that you were responsible for your happiness? Because I hear so many people say, especially in with regard to divorce, he doesn't make me happy. So that always sounded to me like you just put your happiness on somebody else, right? When were you really aware that you were the ultimate purveyor, surveyor, and responsible for your happiness?
Okay. So this is a really challenging question for me, Arnette. Yes, I agree with you that we're all responsible for our happiness, which
Okay.
for our happiness and our life, they go
Ultimately.
together.
Mhm.
And you can't put happiness on like a hat, wear it like a hat. And that's
No.
that's a Marlon
Mhm.
Brando comment, which I totally relate to. So I suppose the best way I can answer that question is, yes, I'm responsible, and it's the process. If we agree that connectedness and relationship is
Mhm.
vital for happiness,
Mhm.
then I have to admit that I am affected by everything around me. And so how do I get to my happiness? That's what I feel I'm responsible for, is the process.
Okay. Yes.
What drives my happiness? That's what
Mhm.
I need to know, so that when my partner or my neighbor or my
Mhm.
friend or just life gets me in a funky place, which is going to happen, I know what I need to do to
Right.
put myself back in a higher vibration that is going to make me feel happier. So if you're someone that loves art or poetry, you got to have that around.
Right.
If you love music, you've got to have that around. What is it that's going to bring you back to your state of happiness?
That's a good point to make, to interject in there, because while we are each responsible, that is not, like you said, something you just, hey, I'm happy. You not a hat you throw on. I'll have to remember that, because no, but because it is real. It is a journey. I know. I'm thinking of myself with regard to that, and it was when I found myself I had returned to my hometown of Lexington, Kentucky, after having lived elsewhere for 10 years, and realizing I wasn't happy and I didn't see my happiness there. So then it became well, what are you going to do about it if you're not happy? And then how do you make it happen? How do you change that? And yeah, so it's definitely a journey. Thank you so much for
Process.
pointing that out. Yeah, it's a process. It is a process.
Mhm.
So realizing it's a process, share with me any hacks or rituals or things that you do on a regular basis that contribute to your happiness. Like you said, like having art around, I think is I know that's very important for me as well. Yeah.
So, Arnette, I had to think about that too. And I thought, wait a minute, Denise, why are you thinking about this? You know what it is. My big driver for happiness is peace. So, in order to keep my life in a way that is not manageable, that's not even the right word, but feels good, peace is my driver. And I know if I live by that and I make decisions based on what is going to be peaceful for me, I will have access to happiness more consistently than not. So that's mine.
Sure.
And what contributes to peace is art. I love art. I
Right.
love color. I love style. I love all of these things, mostly art, but that brings me peace, and that's what keeps me buoyant. Whenever I'm faced with unhappiness or discord, whatever you want to call it, we know we're not feeling good. And at that point of not feeling good is the moment of choice. I want to feel better.
Absolutely.
What do I need to feel just a little bit better? Because we're not going to go from anger to happiness.
No, no.
So what's the next step that I can do? Do I need to take a walk Do I need to talk? What do I need to do? So again, it goes back to our process, and that's the responsibility part, is doing our process.
So is there any advice on just coming to that in other words, that defining moment? I think it's practice, maybe. In other words, identify a moment and then have that as your go-to when
Yes.
it occurs.
It's knowing yourself, knowing your habits, knowing your
Yeah.
patterns, knowing how you respond,
Mhm.
that wave, that emotional wave that we all go through, and who
Right.
triggers us, and just being aware. And again, to use that word mindfulness, okay, I'm upset. And as you said, have that practice of, what do I need to do? Maybe I need to step away. Maybe I need to set my boundaries, whatever it is. Know yourself and know what drives your happiness.
Absolutely. This is so wonderful. I could go on and on and on, but I know that we agreed to a certain time frame, and I have to say that I just knowing you, when we talk about the social connections that we have that are so important to
Yeah.
our health. I mean, mental,
You do
physical.
that really well, Arnette. You do that really well. You keep
Well,
that social connection strong.
I
You,
do. Someone called me a social butterfly recently. And I was like, really? And I thought, well, yeah, I guess I kind of am, but I love people and I love connecting on real,
real,
which
yes.
speaks to something that you mentioned with regard to knowing yourself. You have to know yourself, your triggers, bad or good,
Mhm.
and be able to have a place or a source that you can go to that will bring you back to that place of happiness.
Well,
Denise, I thank you so much for today's interview. And
it's a delight.
put it up on the YouTube channel, You're Happy Now. And I thank you and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a delight.
All right, it absolutely was. All right, thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.